Sir Kenneth Grange was born 17th of July 1929 in London. His successful career as a product designer came about through a series of happy accidents. Grange put his hand up in primary school to apply for a scholarship at an art school. This led to his induction into Willesden School of Arts and Crafts. From here, he briefly worked for the BBC as a scene painter, moving on to work with the architecture firm Acorn. At 19, Grange was conscripted into the armed forces, where his artistic skills got him a role as an illustrator for instruction manuals. His role as an illustrator in the armed forces required him to take apart and reassemble military equipment to understand how they worked. This was Grange's introduction into the world of engineering and the beginning of his fascination with how things worked. After his time in the armed forces, he returned to work for a series of architects before, in late 1950, he went freelance. Throughout his prolific career, Grange has often been described as modernising the domestic life of Britain and is known for pushing the limits of design, with products that are beautifully made, exceptionally well engineered, and a joy to use. He has worked with leading brands including Kenwood, Kodak, and Parker, and has designed an extraordinary range of products including the London Taxi, a shopping basket for Boots Chemist, and the first modern razor. By 1969, he had been appointed a Royal Designer for Industry, and in 1972, he became a partner in Pentagram Design.
I think, without a doubt, it's the train. It's given me the greatest pleasure, and it'll see me out.
The train being the Intercity 125?
The Intercity 125, yes. I call it the train, knowing it's the only train that matters.
In the 1970s, Grange's design consultancy, Pentagram, was tasked with designing the livery for a new prototype high-speed train for British Rail.
I was asked to decorate a new train that they were working on, and they gave me quite a lot of time in which to do this simple decoration, to add their own livery to this new train. Sufficient time that I could play in my own time, with my own initiative, at perhaps changing the appearance of it, changing the whole style of a train.
This use of his initiative and to push the boundaries of what was originally asked for led to a world record-setting train.
A highest recorded speed for a diesel train at 145 miles an hour, a new world record there, and another world best, an average speed on the entire journey of 115.16 miles an hour.
The Intercity 125 quickly formed the backbone of British high-speed rail routes and revived interest in rail travel after years in the doldrums. This instantly recognisable design has endured for over 40 years, its iconic nose cone becoming the defining image of an express train both in the UK and around the world.
If you think about the HST and the Class 800, for example, both completely different types of train. Whether the 800 will be iconic, I don't know. The HST definitely is because of what it stood for and what it did. So if you think of the HST as a Spitfire, you know, it's very solid, goes very well, sounds nice, very iconic.
One of the biggest breakthroughs for Grange was the elimination of the buffers at the front and rear of the Intercity 125. The original model given to Grange by British Rail featured buffers. These buffers created huge aerodynamic penalties affecting the speed and performance of the train.
Its personality comes from that one key difference. It has no buffers. Traditionally, a locomotive, the power car as they're now called, was used for other jobs than carrying passengers. Shunting, for example, needed buffers so you could push and pull. We actually didn't need buffers because in this particular train, uniquely at that time, it would have a power car at either end of a set of coaches. So it's two power cars working together, and they don't do shunting with this train.
This pursuit for aerodynamic efficiency all started with a humble thought process, Grange recounts. In those days, locomotives were big, ugly, blunt-nosed things, and the impact of what was basically a wall of steel entering a tunnel was damaging the brickwork. The idea to give it a streamlined front came from racing cars, which were elegantly designed. It was more a question of what I thought would go fast rather than what I knew, but I worked with an aerodynamic engineer. We built a model and tested it in a wind tunnel. The photographs looked convincing and the board listened. The Intercity 125 was made from very robust moulded plastic, not sheet metal. This was groundbreaking. Trains had conventionally been manufactured from sheet metal and required rivets to fix panels together. These rivets would create turbulent flows around the train, making them inefficient at cutting through the air. Grange's approach to design, which seems predominantly to be based on generating style and form from function and use. This seems to be the natural way for him to work. His clients sometimes do not realize this and approach him as a stylist. Grange recounts, "I wasn't a rail person. I designed the Kenwood Chef and the Kodak Instamatic camera and was brought in to do a paint job to put the BR livery on the engine. So, without telling anyone, I decided to redesign it." His approach to design seems to be rooted in his early experience of learning by doing, of learning to take apart and reassemble artillery mechanisms so that he could make the drawings to allow someone else to do it. He also has strong personal motivation and what he calls a "I can do it" attitude. Grange recounts, "I think there's a bit of me that is a commercial animal, I suppose. A bit of me that's certainly an I can do it man under any circumstances. I always say yes, and of course it gets me into trouble."